Art is a hatchet. When we consume art, our biological propensity for finding patterns takes over. We absorb art. We are art. Social conditioning, or brainwashing, occurs when the perspective of the art that we consume is consistent. In advertising, we call this establishing the terms of dialogue through horizontal saturation. Now, many of us are perfectly willing to accept that propaganda works, but we generally presume it to be malicious, and we presume ourselves to be impervious. I do not believe that either of these things is true. In fact, I would put it to you that much of our current social strife is a direct result of the unraveling of centuries of organic artistic bias. Let's talk about the history of disseminated art. Kings commanded sculptors, because only they had the resources to pull a man from his work on the field and give him bread and wine and stone and chisel. So the king's story was told, and all the peasants saw themselves in relation to the king, day in and day out. Priests held the hand that traced the illuminated manuscripts. When ink first hit the press, landowners set the letters. When radio brought news and music to the masses, the urban owners of the airwaves told the story of America as if it were a single modern civilized people unsullied by the sins of the past. And when television stole our eyes, it was the Cleaver family whose place in the world we imagined was our own, because the writers who were employed by the network could only tell their own tales. One cannot create art that is outside oneself. And so when one group controls the dissemination and production of art, it builds a false sense of truth into their community. If I only listen to my own story, my own perspective, I will not be able to understand what you mean when you challenge me with your art. But the hatchet is falling. I believe that the great promise of the internet age is the shattering of the illusion that there is only one narrative. When angry voters today cry foul over political correctness or decry the pussy generation, I believe they're expressing frustration at having been told for literally the first time in history that other people have stories to tell. When there were 3 channels, every one was written by, and so told the story from the perspective of, white men. When there were 500 channels, even when Tonto was doing the speaking, the words were written by a white man and projected the white man's reality onto the world. But now, there are infinite channels and infinite creators. We are an infinite audience. Now, every poor kid with a telephone is holding a hatchet. Now a black man in woman's clothing has a hit TV show, and now women are lighting the mantle of victimhood on fire, and now white men in fedoras are furious. So where is that anger coming from, and is it justified? Those of us who have always seen ourselves written and represented in art and media are struggling to understand that what is meant when folks say privilege is not that our lives are good and perfect, but that our narrative has never been questioned, and has, in fact, been sanitized and idealized by people who make money off us. Our narrative, the white man's fantasy, has always been put first, and that has biased us into believing our own bullshit. But that's over, and it's never coming back. Never before have we been so consistently confronted by the art and the pain that other communities are expressing, because that art has never been disseminated as classic in our schools or contemporary on our screens. And now we're seeing what I believe is a natural backlash of nostalgia for an age that never existed, because challenge hurts. Change cuts. Art is a tool of empathy, and the only way forward is to seek out more opportunities to both create and to consume, and to do so without resorting to the presumption of idiocy on the other side. Maybe we can take these hatchets and carve a boat on which all humanity might float, lest we drown in the blood of a coming war.